Checking right now.
Live.
Yeah. We will get to a point where it's like that, where we go live and just get it just like mass amounts. But we've been doing this kind of as an experiment, the live stuff, and it's been going well. And we're trying to stage it up slowly.
Yeah, we're on.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
And
Consistency works. I get it.
yeah, and the again, going back to the guys from EVGA, they do these live feeds. They do all these things, and they've been giving us little tidbits, and we're trying to implement them one at a time and grow incrementally and see how it works. So we haven't promoted. So we haven't been like promoting live on Monday very often, because you'll be surprised how many times we get the message at 5:00 right before we're supposed to go on, and someone's like, "Oh, I forgot that was today. Can we not do it?" So,
Or they have to work long hours like Matt, and yeah.
Thank you.
Don't let him. Don't
Acknowledgement.
No. Do not validate him.
Oh, that felt great.
Do not.
It's been so long.
Do not validate him.
Sorry.
All right, you guys ready? Everybody ready? We'll get started.
We're never ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. We are live on YouTube. It's Monday night, and we have Sarah and Teresa from LGECTS on the big video screen in the studio. How are you doing tonight, ladies?
Fantastic.
You guys, you know what? You guys are always fantastic. I have never been, no, seriously. Look, I've never been around you guys where you're not smiling and laughing and having fun. Like this must be, do you guys operate on 10 at all times like that?
That's what life is, though. Totally. 100%.
I would love to be a fly on the wall, like back when you were teenagers and you were arguing about something and probably beating the crap out of each other, because you just always seem like you're in a good mood.
They're beating the crap out of each other while they're in a good mood? Wow.
That's funny. Oh, now they're starting a pillow fight. Okay, cool. I can get into this. We have some pillows here on the couch. The three of us can start smacking each other around.
No. Nobody wants to see that.
So before we get too far, we've already got a bunch of people joining us in the chat room. My brother joined us in the chat room, which, if you guys recall, Teresa, he was arguing with you at Backdoor about the rules of Ultra 4.
I do.
Oh.
But you know what? We also helped out a lot during our event at King of the Hammers too. So
he redeemed himself.
Okay.
He redeemed himself. But the backstory there is we were at the Icon event in Hammers, and Casey was indulging in adult beverages, and we were at the back door having a conversation about the rules of Ultra 4, and Teresa, who has been on it multiple times, is trying to convince Casey what's going on, and he was not having it. And I remember at some point I had to drag him away, because I was like, dude, you were messing this up. So thank you for joining, Casey. So as we mentioned, you guys, we met you through the industry, specifically Icon and some of the other stuff. SEMA, we got the chance to meet with you guys at SEMA. The ladies here are from LGECTS, which is, I'm going to let you explain, what does LGECTS stand for?
Yes. So back in the day, LGE, Louis and Jerry Enterprises. So our mom and dad started it. Back in the day, they were working out of the garage, working on cars and things like that. So LNG Enterprises is our auto body and paint side of it. And then CTS.
In 1996, we started a website called customtruckshop.com. And then in 2001, we opened the brick and mortar store, which is Custom Truck Shop. So that's the CTS side of it.
So does LGE and CTS still operate separately, or are they now merged into one functional business?
Yep. So 2011, 12?
Yeah, 2011.
We went back and combined both shops because everyone was like, they totally thought we were completely different, businesses. We were right next door to each other. Again, one we do full like auto body and paint, and the other was mostly the truck and accessories. And so we merged just so that we could, kind of get everyone on the same page, knowing that we're exactly the same team and stuff. and you know, just to go to events and stuff like that. And then what do? We go and start another brand again.
Which we'll get to. So LGE CTS is in San Dimas. You guys, like you said, you custom collision repair, custom paint fabrication, custom builds, specifically the Baja Ford Ranger, which is the coolest Ranger on the planet. You guys did the Baja Forged Super Duty, which we talked about when we got the chance to meet you at SEMA. Super, super cool. You guys have been doing SEMA builds for multiple manufacturers and aftermarket part suppliers for how long? How long has that been going on?
Oh, early 90s?
Yeah, when we started, yeah. So basically, our dad pretty much started doing SEMA vehicles with Ford, with Frank Scatini that did Monster Jerky. He actually, what was the name of his?
I think it's Big Dummy.
Yeah,
no,
Big Dummy Racing.
that's Matt.
Yeah,
that's what we call Matt. So I don't.
So what was it? A 1992?
Yeah,
maybe that's what it was. 1992 Chevy Blazer, and I think it had 8 shocks on each.
Oh yeah, like with the
yes.
bright colored shock boots.
Pink shock boots, yeah.
Yes.
8 shocks at each wheel.
Yeah.
Back in the day, though, back in the 90s, though, that was the thing. The tractor tires and 45 Rancho shocks front and back. That was the thing.
Right? And they were
yeah. Oh, for sure. That was like the only shock that anybody knew back then.
We've been doing them for a while. We've gone back and forth with, like, you know, we got our own project vehicle in 2000, 2001, 99.
99,
99.
Yeah. Was it the Excursion?
The Excursion.
Yeah, we did an Excursion.
Ford Excursion was our first Ford project vehicle when we started working with them, that we had our own vehicles and stuff. But my dad was building vehicles for, you know, other people, kind of working with them here and there. Then he did the Excursion. We actually did a Ford Ranger next. We did a Ford Ranger Edge, which that thing was badass.
Yeah.
2000. And I love that. And actually had all the bumpers and stuff. That was probably one of the other, one of my earlier designs of a Ranger. And we did all stainless steel 2 bumpers on that one.
I actually had someone that email or like sent me a picture the other day that it's like in Wisconsin now or something, or like, and they're like, look, it's still the same. And I was like, well, it's not really, but like,
they changed the wheels.
But it's still cool to see our stuff out there after, 20 years.
Well, so speaking of that, so when did LGE start? When was the first business? When did your mom and dad start that part?
82. 1982.
And when did you guys start getting involved with the business?
I like Sarah's story, the way she says it.
I started getting paid in 95.
At like 6? How old are you? I want to ask how old you are, but there's no way you...
Dummy.
Who's the dummy? I'm the dummy.
Keep going.
15. Yeah, I was 15 at the time. And, but, you know, it's like, it's a family business. So pretty much like every day, you know, I'm here after school, working, answering phones, doing things. So, I mean, since we were little, we were always in the shop, whether it was in the garage or here or wherever it was. Like, we were always involved. So that's why I always tell people, like, I started getting paid when I was 15, which meant my parents actually put me on the payroll.
Yeah.
So my dad has a body shop.
Me, it's like, totally. And it's funny because I tell people, like, I love body lines and I love grills. And I thought about it and I'm all, that's probably because I was about 2 or 3 years old, like working in the garage with my mom and dad sanding cars at that time.
I was just going to say block sanding cars and masking and prepping for paint.
I grew up around that.
Yeah, that was me too.
Right? Totally. I had a 70 ATC and I would go in the garage and it said Teresa's toy on it. You know, that's what my parents had, like, pinstriped on the side of it. Everything was custom. And so I would be in the garage, like, pretending I'm working on it right next to my mom and dad, like, working on their cars and stuff like
That's
that.
Awesome. So, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that love for the vehicles, that love for motorsport and customization, I mean, do you believe that was just something inherent to who you guys are, or was it because of the environment that you grew up in, it developed?
I think both, because I think it's like everything. Like I've thought of that. It's like, that's a great question, because I've definitely thought of that along the way. Because, like, for instance, like my son, he's 21 and he's in the Coast Guard. He loves guns, you know, but he grew up around cars and motorcycles and all these other things. But he also grew up around guns and hunting, and we'd go and do that all the time too. So that's just something he fell in love with. He fell in love with that and jiu-jitsu and things like that. So I think although it's definitely the path that got us here, it still has to be inherent in who you are in what those things are, you know, like there's something else like deep down that you either know, like that's the path you're going to be on. Like, for instance, like we're both automotive and related, but the types of paths we've taken are completely different too, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think to me, it's like we learned how to do something. My parents are always like, yeah, very like, you need to be hands-on. If you want to go off-roading or you want to ride your quad or your dirt bike, your ATC, like they were always making us like, you have to be the one that goes and fixes it or make sure it's loaded in the trailer or do things. Yeah. And I think that just gave us like, because we were doing those things, it gave us that like sense of gratification in doing it. Like, oh, I accomplished something that's super cool. So I think the same thing with like my nephew, like my dad would take him shooting, or Jason my brother-in-law would take him shooting. And it's like they would go through the whole process with him and he'd have to learn all of the steps. And so I think that's like kind of part of it, where it's like, you know, you get something and you're like, cool, but this is something I can actually do, like hands-on.
Yeah, and I would think that the more you're tasked with doing that and you accomplish it, it builds the confidence to do the next thing, so that when the bigger challenge comes across, you have the confidence to tackle it, and you keep building on that. And you know, I think
you nailed it.
Yeah, and I think when you know, kudos to your parents. You know, you look at some of the paths that are laid out in front of people, like where they aren't really given those opportunities. And the fact that you were given like the chance to try stuff and succeed and or fail and then try again to ultimately build up to where you are and, you know, make the decision that you wanted to move forward this way. I think that's awesome that your parents, you know, instilled that in you.
Yeah, I think they definitely gave us the mindset of just like, we can accomplish anything. I mean, that like simple thing, that simple like, it seems so simple, but at the same time they were like, nope, just go do this. Just go try it. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you fail. You're going to figure it out. Like, just go do that. Yeah. Like, if you can give that to anyone, it's that simple. Like, oh, but like you said, like, oh, but we were given that path, but well, like just that mindset, it didn't matter the other path we took. They were just like, go succeed, go fail, go have fun, just keep doing it.
Do you think,
you know, so the fact that they just put us on that, but they were like, we were still along for the ride, like, okay, cool, we're gonna you know, keep doing this. You know, it's like, not, you know, we have the same kind of friends that will go out with, you know, families and stuff, and their kids stay home or they do different things, you know. So it's not necessarily always, you know, the path that they might take too, but we ended up totally loving it and just really getting into it, I guess.
Your parents sound really awesome. Do you think it's too late? Maybe they could adopt, like a, right? I mean, like a middle-aged man.
Our parents were super awesome.
I'm talking about adopting me. Would you guys like? I could be your brother.
Oh, you want us to adopt you? Got it.
You can adopt me too. I just, you know, I like the positivity. I like the go get it, you know, attitude. Well, and you know, maybe it'll rub off. Is what I'm. It'll rub off on me.
You know. See, not to go into too many directions, but that's like what Real Deal is right here too. Because we know that we were given that opportunity to do that, and that's the way Jessie was also, and like her family grew up the exact same way, like that, of just like, go out and do it. Like, her mom was like drag racing literally when you know, she was pregnant with Jessie and stuff like that. Like, she was what was it, sand drags in a Chevy Blazer, you know. So it's just like, and that's how, like, her parents were the same way, like that, just like, oh, go out and do it and try new things and stuff. And just those types of people we've been around are like that, and we want to like help other people get that too, because everyone goes like, well, I haven't had the opportunity to do it. It's like, cool, let's do this. We have the opportunity right here, let's go. And you know, and like, put it at their, make it so that they can't say no. You know.
And the guys are going to give me a hard time. I promise I won't cry.
Oh, no. Here we go.
So I have a 4-year-old daughter, and every time I bring it up, these guys give me a hard time because I cry.
Mostly Jose.
But so, like, you know, we've had the privilege of interviewing a lot of women on this show that have gone on to tackle motorsports or challenges and publications and stuff. And that's the biggest takeaway from me is from my, you know, as a father, is not limiting what she can or can't do based on what my perception is of her capabilities. It's 100% like she'll come out in the truck, Daddy, can I help? And she'll take a wrench and beat on the truck or whatever. Fine. You know, that's, you know, and when that happens, like, it makes me so excited to see her and hear the stories that you guys have of, you know, that was the foundation to give you the confidence to take on the things that now tackle the world. So,
is this where I start talking trash about you now?
You can. I can take it every time. Every time. Every time.
But that's awesome. But, you know, that's exactly it, though, because, okay, so for real deal, it's changing the perception of skilled trades and women's roles in them. And that's exactly it, because, like you just said, like, you don't want to come off as, like, having a stereotype of, like, oh, women do this. But the problem is our whole world, our whole society has that stereotype. And the only way that we're going to change it is by us all going out and doing that. Physically going out and doing that, showing the world that it can change and changing it.
And I'd like to add one thing. Sorry.
No, you're good.
So like how you're sitting here, you're talking about your daughter, and one of the big things that we always get asked is like, oh, how does it feel being a woman in this industry? And like, honestly, that question was only asked to us like in the recent years of like, oh, you're women in the industry. And it's like, well, technically we've been doing this for like 25 years. It's not like we just started, you know? But the big thing is like, I would not ask my dad, I was like, why didn't you ever tell me like it was like this weird thing to be a woman in the industry working on cars? And my dad's like, I didn't know that it was. Like,
right?
Yes.
You know, it wasn't a thing.
He was like, it wasn't a thing. He was like, you want to do something, do it. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. He's like, you guys wanted to go off-roading? You guys wanted to ride bikes? Like, that's what you guys wanted to do. So we all did it. And that's what it was. He didn't understand that there was like, my mom and dad never understood like, well, there was supposed to be these limitations, and there wasn't.
But it wasn't that they didn't understand that. They treated us like there wasn't.
Yeah.
Because my mom was the same way, because it was like that in her family.
Yes.
Because she was always the one that pushed it. She would be like, oh no, I'm going out to do this. She would go ride motorcycles with my dad, and everyone's like, why are you riding motorcycles? You know? And stuff like, girls don't do that. And she was like, what do you mean they don't do that? Like, you can do anything. You're just a person. Like, they treated us like people.
Yeah. And it always takes that one. People. It always takes that one person, that one influence to be the one that is either oblivious to the fact that there's a problem or that there's a perception, or recognize that there's a perception and don't care. Right. There always has to be that one. And, you know, in our society and all the breakthroughs and all the things that people have done, there's always that one that starts it. And I love seeing that kind of trend where it's like, I want to get to a point where no one ever asks that question. How's it feel to be a woman?
Right.
You know, like, how come no one asks me, how's it feel to be a guy in air conditioning? Well, you know, because there's, you know, right. Like, how come I'm not the special one? I don't, but my point is, there shouldn't, you know, there's all these conversations about the first X type of person that does X, you know what I mean? And I think we're gonna live with that for a while, but there will come a time, I think, in our future where none of that will matter. There'll just be the next person that did the thing. And
I love that.
I'm looking forward to that.
And that's what part of like Real Deal was. Like, you know, it's funny because when we thought of like the next word, revolution, we went and we looked at the word and we really like studied it, and we're like, okay, but we're not like, we're not trying to cause like all this havoc, but it's like, no, it's changing something. It's changing the thought and the idea. Like, we're already on this path of that, but it's exactly what you said. Like you want to see a world where it's just not like that. Well, it has to change somehow. So that's what a revolution does. It changes something. So this
is that transition period.
And it takes people like you to treat your daughter the same way, for our parents to treat us that way. Like, all of that consistency in doing that, but then showing it to other people too as well. I mean, especially like in times like this right now, you know, that you're having so many people say like, oh, well, I haven't, like you kind of mentioned before, had that opportunity. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of like deep down your will, like how much are you willing to do and how much are you willing to give it and put into it, you know?
I 100% agree. And I think that sometimes the whether or not you've had the opportunity is entirely based on whether or not you've been exposed to the opportunity. And what I mean by that is, like, I grew up playing football and baseball. Like that's what we did in my house. Like we didn't camp, we didn't off-road, we didn't ride dirt bikes, we didn't, you know, it wasn't until later in life that I started seeing people that I knew doing these things, and I was like, hey, that looks like fun. I want to check that out.
Right.
And there's part of me, and this is no knock on my family. My dad was fantastic, but you know, he didn't do that stuff, so he didn't know to show me that stuff, so that he, you know, we did what he did. But part of me wishes, like, wow,
you guys just were grumpy all the time.
We were grumpy. And
you made fun of each other,
and just you know,
I do know that's
you know.
I'm
so
just,
the backstory there
I'm
is
confirming like what I know of your dad.
The backstory is the first time Matt met my dad ripped him apart for 20 minutes. Matt took it like a champ, and I was like, he's in, he's good, he's gonna stick around. But, you know, so part of me is like, I wish that I had, you know, exposure to dirt bikes when I was younger and off-roading when I was younger and all those things. And it might have changed the path that I took when I was younger. And, you know, I like seeing people get the opportunity to experience things outside of the normal realm that they live in so that they can then make those decisions for themselves. So with that, we just talked about all the background, I think, that sets up who you guys are. Because you don't have anything else to do in your lives, and you haven't taken on enough challenges as it is, you have started a whole new brand called Baja Forged. So where did this come from? Where did Baja Forged come from?
Oh. Goes back to our childhood, goes back to all of that. You know, growing up and stuff like that. It's funny because, so even our parents, my dad did not grow up around cars.
Okay.
You know, his family was not like that. They would go down to Mexico all the time in San Felipe. We actually have relatives in San Felipe.
Yeah, that was our family.
So my grandpa, they'd go down there, they'd take our parents. Well, then finally my grandpa was like, we got to get one of these dune buggies. Like, these things are cool. So, you know, we go down to San Felipe, had a dune buggy, would have our ATCs and go down there and ride and stuff. And those are probably some of the best memories ever that we both share like that, you know. And then moving forward, you know, I mentioned like the Ranger and stuff. Like I personally went to school for graphic design. I wanted to be an architect, didn't have good enough grades. Went into graphic design at Cal Poly Pomona.
Architecture is not fun. It's not. Look. We
nobody likes you.
Matt and I deal with architects all the time, and they just because you can draw it on paper doesn't mean I can install it in the field.
Exactly. You know, I can draw a lot of things on paper.
And it's the same way now. It's the same thing like with design. It's funny because I use both sides of that because I have like an engineering side where I'm like, okay, I can make this look really cool 2D on paper, but then I'm like, it's not going to function.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, this is not working. Nope.
Maybe you would have been a good architect. Hold on. I take it all back. You sound like an expert architect. You should go back and I'm telling you.
So I do. I sit here for hours, and like my sister and my husband will stare at me like, oh no, what is she thinking up now? But anyway, so in 2011, you know, I've been. That's a whole nother super long story of like how I got into painting and all of that. But basically.